of fly fishing, and two of the most basic fundamentals you can have would be the roll cast and the nymph drift. And so I want to cover those all the way from how I hold the fly rod to how I present to how I set in a short little clip here. I like to hold the fly rod like I'm holding a briefcase. I hold it in my fingers with my thumb on the top. And this way I try to line my thumb up with the spine of this fly rod. So the thumb's on the top, and make sure you hold it in your fingers. Don't tuck it way back into your hand here. I happen to be throwing a nymph rig on a 9-foot 5-weight fly rod. I'm going to throw 3 bugs under an indicator. And the indicator here in this case is a yarn indicator held on with a rubber band. And it's easy to slide, it's easy to adjust. Now the presentation is nothing more than putting the flies where you want them to go. Now anybody that has seen river runs through it thinks of fly fishing as these big beautiful casts. It can be that, but what I want to show you are the fundamentals, the building blocks to get you to that point. Also, if you already nymph fly fish and you already know how to roll cast, this may be a refresher for a few folks. So the way I look at this is wherever my thumb goes, when I'm properly holding the fly rod, wherever my thumb goes, the tip of the fly rod goes. Where the tip of the fly rod goes, theoretically, the flies go. So I want to make sure that my thumb travels either in a horizontal plane or a vertical plane. And when you're casting, especially a roll cast, it's both. So it's going to be a horizontal and the vertical plane. And in this case, what I want to do is try to load the fly rod, meaning put pressure on the fly rod, bend the fly rod, preload it, so when I do cast, it actually helps me with my cast. The fly rod tip in a roll cast situation should probably go at a downward angle. So I'm going to be casting like this. Now if you've ever used a fly swatter, when you use a fly swatter, you do the same thing. You go right at the fly, right where you want to go, but your thumb is leading the charge. You're not like this. And a lot of people get in trouble because they lose this relationship between the rod butt and their wrist when they're roll casting. And I'm going to show you how to try to keep that relationship there for this fundamental cast. Alright, so we're going to take a little line out here. And I stress to you that when you're roll casting, you're going to put 2 clocks up. You're going to put a clock in front of you and a clock to the side opposite of where you're casting. So let's say if I'm going to cast that direction, I've got a clock here. Here's 12 o'clock, here's 1 o'clock. So I'm going to set the fly rod tip at 1 o'clock. And then I turn, and I've got a clock here, I've got 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and I'm going to set the rod tip back to 1 o'clock here. So it's a 1 o'clock relationship with my thumb on top. So 1 o'clock here, 1 o'clock here, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock, thumb on the top. Notice the relationship. Now watch my elbow. I call that the slot. I'm going to put my elbow in the slot. And so when I cast, basically my elbow is somewhat roughly pointing to where I want to cast. So I'm going to be right here, and I'm going to lay it just like that. Now notice again the thumb angle. So if I'm going to cast this way now, I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come just like that. Just like that. If I backhand cast, in other words, if I go that way, then it's an 11 o'clock to an 11 o'clock relationship. So 11 here, and I'm back over this shoulder. Again, now look at my elbows pointing right where I want to cast. I look where I want to cast, and I put my thumb right on that cast. So that's your basic roll cast. Now what I'm trying to do is put out probably about 15 feet of fly line, 10 to 15 feet. I'm going to let the water load the fly rod. Alright, so it's going to, just the pressure of the water pulling on the fly line is going to load the fly rod. And then you're going to see a loop perform. It's going to be long, but it forms kind of a D, and that's called the D loop. So when I'm up in this position here, the fly line is going to form a D loop. So I'm going to be working upstream cast back up this way. So I'm going to be here, 11 to 11, and then form that D loop, put my elbow where I want to go, and put my thumb right on it. Alright, we'll do a couple of those. So let's put out a little bit of fly line. You notice I'm holding it right here. Now look right here. See how this finger is holding on to that fly line? I call that the trigger finger. So I'm going to put a little bit of a loop down here. This is called the management loop. You get into this when you get basically to the next level. Alright? So here I am right here. Fly line's under the trigger finger, thumb's on top. 11 to 11 position, square up with the river. Just like that. Just like that. I'm casting back up this direction. 1 to 1. Just like that. See the loop forming? Just like that. Watch the D-loop. Thumb goes where I'm looking. Water low, D-loop, elbow comes up, thumb goes where I'm looking. That's your basic roll cast. Now your basic nymph drift, what I'm doing fishing with nymphs is I'm fishing subsurface bugs at this point. There's all kinds of different ways to fly fish, but this is a good place to start. What I'm going to do is called a drift. It's a single drift. And when you're nymph fishing, it's usually a 45-degree angle upstream, down to anywhere between a 50 and 60-degree angle downstream of you before you pick up and recast. What I want is the indicator sitting on the water and the bug suspended, and I want to drift along like this. And if this indicator up here does anything but float, then I put what I call a set in. The key to a drift is called the mend. The mend is basically aligning the fly line so I have zero drag, because if I have any drag on those bugs, if they're going too fast or too slow, those fish are not going to eat. So I want to mend everything up so I get a good drift. In this case, I'm going to do what's called high sticking. And a high stick is a flat fly rod up over the water. So it's going to be like this. And basically I'm going to just lay it upstream. I'm going to point my fly rod tip right at that indicator, and I'm going to follow it throughout the drift. All right? With the minimal amount of fly line on the water as possible. When I get down low downstream of me, I just let the indicator stop and let the bugs come up, and then I reposition and I go from there. Let's do a couple trips. So a 45-degree angle upstream, flat fly rod. Now there's some line on the water that's forming a belly here. Anytime I have line on the water that's forming a belly, it's being pulled, which is pulling my bugs. Anytime those bugs are being pulled, they're not going the correct speed, and the fish won't eat. So in order to beat that, here, fly rod comes up, flat. Now right here, I'm going to put a little mend into the drift. And all that was is I took the line, I drew a circle around the indicator upstream to get it off of the water, and so that indicator wouldn't drag. Here we are again, flat fly rod, little bit of a mend. Now as it gets down below me, you see how the fly rod naturally goes down. So the fly rod starts low, then it goes high, then it goes low again. And that's considered a drift. So once I learn how to present where I want to present and get a good drift, then it comes down to what I do when the fish eat, and that's a set. And in this situation, the set is downstream, usually low across the water. What I want to do is hook that fish in the corners of its mouth. So the set is going to be, in this case, downstream, low across the water. Let's go ahead and imagine that a fish eats, and we'll put a set in. I'm just going to toss it out front here. Let's say that indicator right there pauses. Boom. That's my set. Now look, nice and slow, it comes right up here. That's the set. Let's do it again. I'll just throw it out front here. Okay, here's a little mend. Let's say a fish eats right there. Boom. That's a set, and it comes right up into this position. But once you get up into this position, then you're just going to spool this line up and let go of the fly line and let the fly rod do the work for you. So that's basically what we're talking about when we talk about your basic presentation and your basic nymph drift. And they form the building blocks for all the other casts and all the other drifts that you pile on top of that frankly you can spend a year, a whole life learning. This is Duane Redford, Fishers Playbook.